My story, man. I was born into baseball.
Yep.
My dad was All-American at Sam Houston State, was drafted, had an injury. Mom was a college softball player. So I basically grew up with a bat in my hand and glove. I really didn't have a choice. Um, I
Yeah.
mean, honestly, it really wasn't a choice. Like the other
Yeah.
babies had rattles, I had a bat and a ball.
Yeah.
Um, and it just kind of went from there. I was always undersized and kind of, written off,
Yeah.
and ended up just turning into for a high school and low level college, a really good middle infield type guy. But I didn't hit for power. I could run.
Hmm.
Wasn't really given a shot anywhere. Big coming out of high school. So it was always a grind, and that's where the coaching has kind of come into it. I had a little bit too big of an ego, coming out of high school.
Yep.
I chased a girl, went to Texas A&M. This huge school was like, oh, I'm an invite walk on here, no big deal. I'm gonna impress them with my glove, yada yada yada, all that jazz. Uh, and then walk out on the field and reality hits.
Yeah.
And way in over my head, physically, the way those guys went about it. Instead of looking to my right and seeing a normal high school guy, I'm seeing a transfer from Arizona State who's a junior, and you know
Studs.
yeah, studs can do. And so I didn't make it at A&M, right? I tear my shoulder apart lifting and trying to do too much.
Yeah.
um and from that point, I mean, even in college, I started, doing lessons here and there.
Yeah.
I've always loved kids. Like that's been something that I've always had. I mean, even
Yeah.
growing up, when I volunteered time to do things, it was with kids.
Yeah.
I came home from college and coached my cousin's, 13-year-old baseball team, that type of stuff.
That's cool. Yeah.
And I just became a student of the game. Like it's something that I love. And, some people I'm sure that know me think I'm pretty boring. Like baseball is my life. Like I
Yeah.
really don't do much else. Um, I study the game. I look at how the best that have ever done it do it from a
Yeah.
mechanical standpoint, and try to fit that into the normal players. Everybody has these, oh, well, this big leaguer does it like this, and this big
Yeah.
leaguer, dude, those are world class athletes.
Yeah.
Like,
It was an evolution. It doesn't just, you
yeah.
don't just jump there.
So, and that's why, getting into this YouTube stuff and getting into Instagram and having all these reaches, like now I get to talk to a guy that has, played at the big league level.
Well, not
And
big league, but
well,
yeah.
yeah, but I mean,
Yes.
in
I hear.
in you were playing professional baseball.
Yes.
Um, and that's just the whole world out
Yeah.
there that I know nothing about. The preparation that you guys go through, and the actual, we talk to our, 11, 12, 13 year olds. Oh, the grind, the grind, the
Sure.
grind. Nobody knows about the grind. You know about the grind.
Yeah. It's not always pretty.
Yeah. So, in getting those different things, it's not everybody that coaches this game uh, played at a high level,
Yeah.
like that. And you hear all the time, the great coaches don't always have to be pros, or,
Sure.
they don't have to have this long lineage. People can now study the game that they love, and in some cases give that information in a better way than a big league guy
Oh
that
yeah.
is, for whatever, for all it's, I know the game's not easy, but it came easy to them. If you're playing professional baseball, it's a good chance that when you were 12, 13, 15, 17, the game was pretty easy to you against your peers. Um,
Sure.
and that doesn't always translate to being the best coach.
No.
So,
Yeah. Absolutely
so
not.
yeah, getting in with you, and talking mental side and all the stuff that you do is it's big for me, man. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. Same here. What what made you? Because when you went from, you said you kind of had a big head earlier in your
Yeah.
career. Was there anything that changed going into coaching, or like you said, you always kind of you always kind of enjoyed being with kids, but was there anything that changed? Because, and I'll get to it, because I had to have a paradigm shift, a mental shift to get in before I was able to get into coaching, or before I wanted to get into coaching. Was there anything that changed, or was it just kind of a natural just
It,
move
it
into
was
coaching for
really,
you?
yeah, it was really natural for
Okay.
me. As soon as my playing days were done, I mean, the instant that my shoulder was shot and I knew,
Yeah.
like, it was automatic. It was okay. Where can I find my first, coaching gig? Where can I volunteer?
Yeah.
Um, I have to be around this game.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any false ideas of comebacks or anything like that. So
Yeah.
as soon as I graduated from A&M, I have a sports management degree. I was working at an academy just as soon as I got out of college, and my high school coach called me
Hmm.
and said, "Hey, I heard you're back. You're graduated. Would you like a job?"
Yeah.
And man, I started doing freshman baseball then, and took off. Did high school baseball for 9 years, almost 10, I guess, and just transferred over to more the academy and development and
Yeah.
recruiting. So it was just it happened pretty
Yeah.
easy.
A smooth,
Uh,
kind of just a natural evolution
yeah.
into it. Right on, right
Yep.
on. All right, well then we'll do a little bit of my background. So
Good.
obviously, same thing. My dad was a professional basketball player briefly. My dad's a big old boy. He's 6'6", like
Oh
200.
Lord.
Yeah, he's a big. So I'm 6'3", but I mean he makes me look tiny. But anyway, so he was a hard worker when it came to training and improving his craft as a basketball player. He always had a love for baseball, and he always told himself if he had a boy, he was going to be a baseball player. So I mean it was predetermined before I was even conceived
Fair enough.
that
There
I
it
was
is.
going to play baseball. And I
Uh,
think that is a common thing with a lot of either diehard baseball people, whether you're a coach or a player. There's a roots in this game, right from the very beginning. Like I had a ball in my hand. There's a picture somewhere floating around um, where I'm like the ball looks like a basketball in my hands.
yeah.
Like that's how little I was holding, and it was actually a Major League Baseball. Funny enough. But so, anyways, I was into it early. I was always big, always stronger than my other my teammates. So I definitely had that strength and size over most of my over my peers. Power was always seemed, at least from what I can remember, I always had more power than other kids. I always had a stronger arm than most of the kids. But also early on, and this goes into, we won't go too much into this, but my personal life with my family, and there was a divorce going on like when I was like 8 or 9 years old. So a lot of confusion at that age. And so there was a lot of like, I think, frustration. And again, it stems from confusion, develops into frustration, and ultimately led to anger. So I would show my anger very early. Like I was ejected when I was 9. That was the first game I was ejected from when I was 9. So as you can see, that was kind of like,
I laugh. I mean, it's not funny because
no,
I
I
know
know,
where it's coming
yeah,
from, but at the same time, it's like, dang, 9. At least I waited
9,
till I was 17.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And it wouldn't be my last time.
Gotcha.
So there was I always excelled, and I threw hard. I was throwing like 75 in little league, and hitting balls like 300 feet, and and so I always excelled, and that would carry on. I developed that work ethic from my father, who was and I grew up watching Rocky like on
Okay.
reruns, so that was kind of like I always had that
Menta-
like,
All
yeah, I
mentality.
always had that mentality. I always had that like I'm just gonna, that kind of the drama. Like I could see it just.
I tiger,
I had
man.
a tiger, baby. So that always kind of, I was always very well fueled when it came to work ethic and working on the physical parts of the game. I get into high school, and it continued. I mean, I'd hit my points where I'd plateau, or like where maybe it seemed like I would kind of level out with my power and my arm, but then my work ethic would kind of my would fuel push past, and start to separate myself from other people. I always played year round, which I'm sure you did too. I mean, it was just nonstop baseball. Get into high school again, just more and more success, but the temper, the anger that would surface when things didn't go as anticipated. And then this is where we'll get into the mental game. Why I'm big on the mental game is because that was my weakest point. And I had the attitude or the mindset that didn't even believe that I needed to work on that. Or if somebody told me, well, you have an attitude, you can't throw helmets, you can't slam bats, I would just say, well, that's just how I am. I'm passionate. I'm Italian. I wear my heart on my sleeve, kind of thing. It's like, and so I kind of use that. That was always like an excuse for how I acted. You know what I mean? So I was always bailing myself out. And so ultimately I ended up getting drafted out of high school. Actually, I got drafted as a pitcher out of high school. It was always a big struggle because scouts wanted me to pitch and I always wanted to hit. I had won league MVP my junior year as a hitter, so I had plenty of success as a hitter. But they saw me as a pitcher. So there was always this big like back and forth between hitter pitcher, and I always had a love for hitting. I felt that my power as a hitter was far beyond what I could do as a pitcher. Like I was topping out at like 90, 91, my junior and senior year in high school. Anyways, get drafted low rounds by Houston, actually. I was drafted by the Astros. Really? Yeah, I was drafted by the Astros, ultimately twice. I was eventually drafted by Houston my freshman year at junior college, but I was drafted 50th round. I led our league in home runs and RBIs as a freshman, and was drafted 50th. And there were guys in our league getting drafted top 10 rounds. So I was but that was, again, one of those things where it's just like, I would just get upset about it. And I'd kind of talk down about other players. They can do that. They can't do what I can do, kind of thing. So it's more like the attitude. So my sophomore year, I actually signed with Texas Tech. I was going to go get a scholarship there. I go in, I have an injury my sophomore year. And that was when, this is where I excelled. When I was set back, and in this case, this was like the first season-ending injury I'd ever had. I was 6'3", 235, which is about what I am now. I was a little overweight, a little heavy, strong as hell, but I needed to lose weight. And I was like, I have a broken foot. I can't be out of shape. And this kind of goes into like the situation we're in now, is like making the best of the time that you do have to do whatever you can with what you got. So I hit it hard. I got into nutrition. I got into doing working out, doing whatever I could. Like, so I'd work just upper body until my feet got better. I could put it on a bike, and I started riding a bike. I lost 25 pounds and came back stronger, throwing 94. So I increased 5 miles an hour on my fastball and half a second off my 60 time, all through an injury. And that's what kills me today, is that I see so many kids getting hurt, maybe spraining a wrist or something, or breaking a wrist, or anything, right? And then they come back and they're not in better shape. It's like, dude, what are you doing? If you want to, you wasted time. You use it as an excuse to sit on the couch, and that's flat out truth. Anyway, so I had a bust out year. I hit like 390. I hit like 11 home runs. I led the league in I set a record for intentional walks, because like people just didn't want to pitch to me. Especially we're using the bats. What kind of bats were we using? The Beezer bats, BSR, BESR, whatever.
Yeah, BESR.
So I was just annihilating baseballs. So anyways, then I get drafted by Colorado in the 15th round, and then went on to play 3 years with them. But again, the underlying theme with me was my attitude. And that was my Achilles tendon. So I actually was an all-star my second year in the minors. I don't know how. I mean, because when I think back, I was so hard. I mean, I put up decent numbers. So I mean, that's why I became an all-star. But how the explosiveness that I would have as a not as a hitter, I had that, but just with anger
Hmm.
when I would struggle, like how I maintained myself during the season or how I didn't maintain myself, going out and partying, just not taking care of my body. I broke down through the season mentally and physically. I was healthy, but like I was able to
Right.
be on the field, but
And on that note, real quick, I
yeah,
that goes back to like you and guys that are big and strong and talented and whatnot that win all these awards and do stuff. That's where I was talking about the game being easier, and I try to take what you just said. You were doing it at a professional level or a high college level, to going out and partying and not taking care of your body the right way, and that's for a really really high level guy. And
hmm
trying to explain, hey, you got to do this to a mediocre, middle of the road high school guy. Like, hey, bro, you're not this really high level guy that can get away with this. Like,
yeah,
I understand that senior All American can go and party till 4 a.m. and then show up and still play high school baseball and do really well, but you can't. And, you know, taking that in and from an early age, getting kids to understand now the world that they live in from a sports perspective. It's not just baseball.
yeah,
It can be basketball, it can be soccer, it can be whatever. At 12, 13, 14 years old, you've got kids that are getting recruited and looked at and everything else. And those are the people you're competing against. And you're living in a bubble of your high school.
it's a
And
very small
I,
bubble.
I'm trying to expand this bubble for you to understand this is a huge world out there. And if you're not starting to
Yeah,
take care of your body, to take care of your grades, to take care of your mental health, to, develop these things, that's just like not getting in the cage and working or getting in the bullpen and working. It's the exact same thing.
exactly the
Uh,
same thing.
so yeah, trying to get that through to kids is a definite issue.
Oh, like I said, every component of I usually use the analogy like a car, and talking about like little things versus big things. So like a lot of kids will only focus on what they think are the big things, but it's like a car. Okay, the big thing in the car that the most obvious would be like the engine, right? I mean,
Mhm.
without an engine, the car's you don't have a car, right?
Right.
Or at least as far as the function of a car, you can't get anywhere, and it's probably the most expensive part. It has the most, it's the heaviest, right? But then you take, okay, well, look at like the tires or like, spark plugs or like you're missing a lug nut on
Yeah.
your wheel. Those wheels come off. Those are smaller than the engine. They're less expensive. They don't weigh as much. It's just a air and rubber, right? But if you don't have those, you don't have a car, right? So it's like
Yeah.
you can miss one little, and I don't know anything about a car. I'm not a car guy, but I know that one little thing missing out of the engine, you got a problem.
Exactly.
You're not going to be able to make that long trip because you're missing that one little thing. But it's a little thing, you would think. The way the
Hmm.
kids think, it's like, well, that's a little thing. So one of the things was like, hey man, you just walked past that piece of trash on the baseball field. Why would you not pick it up? It's like, why do you see a wrapper there and not pick it up?
I didn't put it there.
Yeah, it wasn't mine. But the field is
Yeah.
yours. You get to play on this field, right? And then the idea that the way you do anything is how you do everything. It's like, because where does it
Yeah.
start? It's like, why would you not just bend down, pick it up, and especially when it's like right next to the trash can? Just pick it up. Because how you do things, how you do these little things, the fact that you ignore it as a little thing, it means that you're very likely to disregard, discredit, let's say the mental game. Or like, oh, I don't need to go to the gym today. I'll skip a day. That one workout over time, let's say you do that once a week, you skip a workout. Well, I'm just skipping one workout, but you skip one a week. Now you've missed four
Yeah.
in a month. 2 months you
Yeah.
miss eight, and then in a year you miss, what is that, 36 or 12 or 48
Yeah.
workouts. Where somebody
All
else,
adds up, man.
it all adds
And
up.
and it's the same thing. I mean, it's with the little bits too, like the arm care stuff.
Hmm
Like dealing with our 12, 13, 14 year olds. It's like, oh, I went and I threw my bullpen. Oh, cool. Did you do your arm care afterwards? No. Hey, I went and long tossed. Okay, cool. Did you do your arm care afterwards? And then it's like, well, no. And it's like, well, you wonder why you have arm problems now. You're
Yeah.
doing all the high intensity stuff. You're not taking care of the maintenance,
Yeah.
right? And that, kind of goes back to that engine. You're taking care of the engine,
Yeah.
but you're not taking care of the spark plugs, and you're not taking care of, the bands, and you're
Yeah.
not taking care of the oil and et
Yeah,
cetera,
the
et
oil
cetera.
and the gas, exactly.
So yeah, man, it's an uphill battle all the time, and I think that all goes back to mentality, and I think that some of that can be taught. Obviously, it's our job as instructors and coaches to present that to players in a way that's not overwhelming. If you come and you say, "Hey, here's your arm care program," boom.
Yeah.
But the importance of it and everything else. But I think some of that is just some kids have it, some kids don't. In some form of fashion, it goes to the kids that pay attention to the detail, the really highly competitive kids. Those are usually the ones that we don't have the big issues taking care of the maintenance.
Yeah.
They're doing all that. Maintenance isn't fun. That's the other thing.
It's not sexy.
Yeah, not
The
at
mental
all.
game. The mental game. It's not sexy. I think a lot of people even avoid the mental game like it's like maybe that there's something they're not mentally strong because it's more of a I think people will get maybe more defensive internally if they hear that because like that's how I was like someone's like, oh, you have a bad attitude or you're a mental midget, excuse the
Yeah.
phrase, but
Yeah.
the mental midget, it's like, I'm mentally strong, and then it's like, but that's part of it. It's like, because I'm defensive because I know that it's true. I
Yes.
know it's true. And so I avoid it like the plague. Oh, too soon? Too soon for the plague jokes? But, so that was the thing. And I think it's almost like you said earlier, it's just as important as going to the gym. So it'd be crazy for a kid to say that he wants to achieve something in baseball, but then he doesn't go to the gym and he's a pitcher, he doesn't long toss, he's a hitter, and he doesn't ever go to the cage or he doesn't take extra swings. It's just as bad, or it's just as a missing component or an important component is working on the mental game, your
Oh, I,
mentality.
th- I think once you get to a certain point, I mean, you always got to work on your skills. But I think when you get to a certain level, it's more important.
Yeah,
And not even by a little bit. I mean, a huge margin.
huge.
Because just like I relate everything, because like I told you on the phone, man, my niche is kind of that 12 to 18, right?
Yeah,
And at some point at the varsity level in high school, obviously you have your separation, but everybody's good, right?
yes,
Everybody is a good ball player. And it's the ones who mentally, have already developed an approach, have learned how to care for their bodies and could withstand a full season. Don't get really up, don't get really down. They stay more even keel. They know how to control the competitive juices, those type of things. And those are the guys that excel. It's not because they're astronomically better skilled,
no,
better athletes. It's because they have the better combination of athleticism and mental approach.
exactly.
Uh, Overall mental approach, not necessarily just hitting or whatever, but overall big picture.
Well, it's the mental. The mental will unlock the physical.
Right.
And I think that's the big thing that people don't realize, that you can push. Like, let's say you're like a no days off kind of guy. Okay, so I just hear that people say you should not take any days off and you should just work. But you're going to work yourself into the ground.
Yeah.
You're not going to last. Whereas the guy that can step back for a second and say, yes, it is important to work hard, but I also need to know how my body works. I need to know that after a really intense workout that my body needs to recover. So now I'm going to do my research. I'm going to find a coach or whoever and be like, hey, what should I do after a hard workout? Should I ice? Should I drink a protein shake? Should I eat? Should I not eat? Drink lots of water? You know what I mean? Like all this stuff, so that you can bounce back stronger the next time. And that's all part of your mindset. It's all part of the learning, whether you're a learner or not, right? If
Yeah.
you're learning the game, not just treating everything like it's a nail and all you have is a hammer. You ever hear that saying? Right?
Yeah.
It's like if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. You just want to plow through, but that is not how you're going to make it long term. This is a long term game. It is a lifestyle of a game, where
So not only is it a lifestyle, but it's a
yeah,
lifestyle that is just like anything else. Everybody's is going to be slightly different. Like there
yes,
is no one way, like, and I'll use the, recovery. Some guys are ice guys. Some guys are run guys. Some guys
yeah,
are heat guys. Some guys are throw the next day guys. Some guys are
yeah,
take a full day off guy. And learning your own body and what works for you to be able to, prolong success and everything else.
yeah,
I see so many times, well, what did you do for your recovery? And somebody just, okay, how long you been doing that? Oh, I don't know. My coach told me to do it. It's
they
like,
don't know
well, you got
why.
to take responsibility of your own body. It's not the coach's body.
Yeah,
Like you have to develop your own. It's just like anything else. So there's just so much that goes into it. Like these players don't have any idea. They really don't. And we can tell them and use us as an example. But at the end of the day, they have to have the love. They have to have the commitment, and they got to find their own way.
yeah,
And just being able to guide them there and hope that they don't make big mistakes. Everybody's going to have learning curves and do things, but just trying to mentor in a way that kids don't make big mistakes.
sure,
Whether it be, getting in trouble with the law, or whether it be your body falls apart because you don't know how to take care of it.
yep.
You know,
Well, and then that's it right there too. The mentality, the mindset of how, excuse me, the mindset of how you take in information. Like,
mm-hmm.
and you're looking for information. I didn't look for information. I knew that I was at an elite level above other people because I had an above average or an elite level work ethic, but it was very like isolated to the physical. So I
Mm-hmm.
increased velocity and power over time, and I got bigger and I got stronger or leaner or whatever it was I was trying to do. I did that, but I did not focus. I didn't have the same mindset when it came to my mindset.
Yeah.
So it's like the way I thought about how I did things, and it was just a limited, very, very specific area, and that's where other kids don't. They fail to see. And again, the talent. People believe, in my opinion, I don't believe that talent is what people think of talent. They think it's kind of a born ability. It's something that they're born with. Like Mike Trout comes up
Yeah.
often. That is, yeah, genetically he is the way he's built. There's some genetics where he can put on muscle easier. Maybe he's a little bit stronger or whatever. That's genetic. But when it comes to actually playing the sport of baseball, there's no gene that makes you a good baseball player. Okay. And in my opinion, and from the research and the studying that I do in the mental game and in like just researchers that study success, is that it's a combination of so many other variables that we don't see. We didn't see how Mike Trout grew up and his father being a professional baseball player, how he exposed him to the game very early. So that's another big component. As you're growing up, you have somebody that you live with, a coach who can
Yeah.
monitor your swing and can critique you and guide you along the way. And if it's done in a way where the kid enjoys it, you're going to have somebody that's going to stick with the game for a long time. Plus the mindset and the learning and all these things. So it's like at the end of the day, we see this finished product of Mike Trout, and it's very easy for kids these days to say, man, he's just so talented. Yes, if you're referring to it as being a birth, from birth, a genetic thing, I don't agree. I don't agree with it. I think it's environmental. There's some genetics in there with his size, his strength, his whatever, but again, it's all work ethic and his mentality and how he goes about his business.
There are plenty of outstanding world class athletes that are not the best in the world at anything.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I use the analogy I came up with this was talent is like magic. So, like for example, if you're a kid or you're Josh, and I say, Josh, do you believe in magic, like a magician pulling a bunny out of a hat? Do you believe in magic as a real magical thing?
yeah, no,
No,
but okay.
right? But then you might watch a magician and you'd still be impressed. You're like,
Yes.
dang, how did he do that? Like, holy shit, right? You'd be like, how does he do that? That's impressive. So I like to think of talent like that. Okay, if you have the right mindset, you'll look at talent like you'd look at magic. You'd say, well, yeah, he's talented, but there's a strategy to it. We just don't see it. Right?
Yes.
It's an illusion. And I think that is kind of where we're kind of lost, because I get in this conversation when I was coaching college a couple years ago. It was the debate kind of over this idea that you were born to be Mike Trout. Mike Trout was born, not built. And
Yeah.
you're insulting the athlete by saying that. You're downplaying, and you're making an excuse for why you can't be better, because you weren't born with that talent. And again, comes down to a fixed mindset, thinking that your intelligence and everything is your athletic ability, your skills is preset, is predetermined, and there's nothing you can do about it. And if there's nothing you can do about it, why would you try?
Right.
So I think that's kind of I like the magic and talent. It's kind of a similar thing, in a sense.
I concur. I've never thought about it that way, but hey, that's why we're having this conversation.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think sharing the different, like your experience getting in the coach, like you've got, was it 17 years of coaching?
Yeah, 18.
18 years? Like, that's nuts, because I've only been coaching for a few years. So it's like we're almost like our careers are like backwards. I have an area, like you mentioned earlier, I have an area that you didn't experience, or a journey that you didn't experience, but you have a journey that I haven't experienced yet. So you are, is you're looking to learn as a coach. And now I've got to that point where I'm looking to learn as a coach as well. It allows us to learn from each other and combine all that knowledge, which means that as a coach, in terms of being a coach, how effective we can be it's unlimited. There's no telling, because you're willing to take it all in.
And that's why I enjoy this type of thing, and like the interaction on Instagram and all of that's relatively new to me. I was having a conversation with one of my buddies earlier. I'm just a baseball guy.
Yeah.
Like all this internet stuff and all this social media and whatnot. That's my girlfriend, right? She said, "Hey, you know what you're doing. We need to expand who you can reach out to." Yeah. And seeing how other people interact, it makes me really happy sometimes. And on the other hand, I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like barking back and forth at each other and arguing and having all of this stuff. Like number one, we're supposed to be doing this for kids. Number two, none of us are know-it-alls. Like we can learn things from everybody. Everybody's going to have a little bit different. And are there some guys out there that are just faking it? Absolutely. Yep. And those guys, you can spot them quick and you don't give them a second thought. Yeah. But the guys that are out here truly doing it for the right reasons and have knowledge, may have their niche, like I said earlier, 12 to 18. Yeah. I'm not trying to go and be a professional hitting instructor. I'm not trying to go and be a D1 college guy. I am perfectly good developing high school baseball players and getting kids that may not be that elite athlete, skill, talent, sure, size, whatever, yeah, and giving them the opportunity to experience college baseball.
Yeah.
And having those open communication and having a mutual respect, some guys, and I just use like some guys that played, professionally. Yeah. They could look at a guy like me and be like, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm not even going to give him the time of day. Big league in it.
You weren't there. Yeah, you weren't there. So how could you know?
Yeah, and I've had it happen, at coaching conferences. When I was, coaching high school baseball, we went to a coaching conference every year.
Yeah.
And some of the guest speakers that may have been ex-big leaguers or big D1, program guys, I'm not going to call anybody out, mention any names, but there were numerous D1 head coaches at these conferences that you would go up and try to introduce yourself, and they would act like they were too good for you.
Yeah.
Because you were a high school coach and they're the guest speaker at this conference or whatever it is, instead of understanding, hey, we are the guys that are getting the guys ready for you.
Yeah. It's all big picture here.
Yeah. So, it is what it is, and the world's getting bigger, and I'm just glad that, me and you can do this type thing, and I hope that other people kind of follow suit. And I think people are. I mean, you look around and you're seeing more and more collaboration and good things going on.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, Astros fan.
Yeah, man. So here he goes, right? My Astros. What the hell? Um, I am not naive enough to think that the Astros are the only one doing this, correct? So, um, does it look really bad? Absolutely. Okay. But I did a post when this was coming out, and it was basically okay. So you take billionaire, millionaire owners, and then you take these GMs and front office people that are now Harvard and Yale, and they're analytics and they're computer science majors and they're all this, and you say, okay, you can use technology. You can have your iPads, you can do all this stuff, you can try to pick up signs on pictures, you can do all this, and you don't think that those competitive geniuses are going to figure out a way to do this, right? And so it was kind of like that you should have seen this coming. Sure. For me. Do I think the Astros went overboard? Absolutely. Okay, I'm not going to stand here and be like, oh, it's fine. There shouldn't be any repercussions. If you're taking real-time video and running it through, okay, that's over the line.
Yeah.
However, I think the response to fire or to suspend Hinch for a year and to fire, the GM and stuff, I think that was a little overboard. I think that was a reaction that they felt they had to have because of the backlash. My personal opinion, it's a little overboard. Fine AJ Hinch $100,000 and Lunau, whatever you want to do, take some draft picks away, that type of thing. But you got the Yankees, you got Cora, you got Beltran with the Mets, you've got all this stuff that people are just expecting. And man, I think it's just overblown. I think it's a media circus now at this point.
What do you think about how the players handled it, as far as like all the so-called apologies and stuff?
I think players should just shut up. Just guys, go out on the field, swing the bat. If you get plunked, you get plunked. Go down to first base. It was something that shouldn't have happened. Y'all got caught. You got punished. Shut up and go play.
Yeah. Or if you're going to talk, you need to, you got to be sincere. You got to really, and that's the problem. They're not sincere because they don't really care. These are young kids. We see them as these elite athletes, but they're kids. I would have been, if I had made the big leagues, I'd be a kid at that age too, because I was. I had to grow up at 30. My career had to end before I could actually start growing up and get out of that, like, I'm a baseball player, kind of, living that lifestyle and doing what baseball players do, and get my ego, right? I had to kind of come down to earth. And a lot of these guys they're not there. Not that they've had it handed to them, they've earned where they're at, but the sense of their development as a human being is limiting, or they haven't grown as individuals, as humans, and how they conduct themselves. The apology by the owner was bad. The apology by everything was so scripted, with Bregman and it's terrible, because he was so arrogant in one of the previous post-game conferences or whatever, and then you can see that later on he was so like, oh, the commissioner said that. It's like, come on, dude. Like, you guys got to grow up a little bit. Getting caught, they're more just sorry they got caught, in my opinion.
I think they're sorry they got caught, but at the same time, Alex Bregman, and I just use him because his was atrocious to watch, and I love Alex Bregman as a player, man.
Yeah,
kid can play, but it was horrible to watch. The office, the front office, the PR, whoever wrote that stuff out and said, "Oh, go read this." You're setting them up for
terrible.
That.
Yeah.
You're setting them up. Like, Alex Bregman would never on his own wake up and be like, you know what? I'm going to go do an apology today in front of cameras and everything else. That would have never happened.
The last thing they want to do.
So you put that, like you said, on a young kid, and then it's scripted. He's literally having to read it or memorize it or whatever. Yeah. And it just came off so bad.
Bad.
It was horrible. And that's when I was like, as an Astros fan, that's when I was like,
yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, can we please just make this go away? And
It's bad.
not
Yeah.
to make light of the situation, but it's away now. Nobody's talking about the Astros, but it's
Yeah.
it's gonna keep coming. Whenever we do start playing baseball, this is not something that's gonna go away.
Yeah.
They're gonna hear it all year. If for I'm of the belief that these high level athletes are going to have a chip on their shoulder about yay high, and I still think the Astros are going to be very, very, very good this
Oh,
year.
yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of the other thing is that they're good already. They didn't have to cheat. And now what's funny is that the way they respond to all the criticism is, oh, we're going to shut them up. Where was that mentality when the idea of cheating came in?
Yeah,
Why couldn't
we
you have
don't.
said we don't need it? Why couldn't somebody step up and say we don't need it? Look at how much talent we have on this team. Why don't
Yeah,
we, like where now there's the fire to, oh, we're going to prove them wrong. Well, wait a minute. Do
yeah,
you guys hear yourselves?
yeah,
It's a joke. And again, that goes back to the personal development side. And it's a collective. It's a collective thing. That means all the way up through the organization, we have people that are thinking with like a very immature mentality.
yeah,
You have some of the best athletes in the world, best baseball players in the world on your team already, and now you want to cheat. But then you cheat and you win. That's the thing. You cheated and it worked. Like
yeah,
Barry Bonds and steroids. He cheated, obviously, and cheating has a new meaning now. So
yeah,
we got to kind of be careful how we use that. But he broke records. If he didn't break records, people wouldn't have an issue with him. Well, other than the fact of how he conducted himself, how he
yeah.
treated people. That was another issue. Maybe on that, do you want to add on that, like cheating? Let's say steroids versus the Astros scandal. What do you
Um,
think?
and
Better or worse? One's worse.
better or worse? That's a tough.
That's a good
Um,
question then.
man, that's a tough one. Um, I I liked watching Barry Bonds and Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire and all of those guys who were roiding. I enjoyed it. I'm a
Everybody
fan
did.
of
Yeah.
entertainment for me. I consider myself a true baseball fan. I've grown up watching this, but Major League Baseball is entertainment to me.
Yeah.
I do not take it personally
Yeah.
like, oh, you cheated me out of my money or
Sure.
my time or anything else. Like, yeah, man, you were doing something detrimental to your body and you knew you were doing wrong. That's on your conscience. But from my perspective, I was in front of the TV every night waiting on Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire to hit a bomb.
Every other day they hit a home run. It was
Yeah.
like, no, you hear the
And
news. No way, they hit another one? Another
yeah,
one? It was
exactly.
nuts.
And Barry Bonds was when I was
Unbelievable.
growing up, and Barry Bonds in his roid prime was can't you couldn't miss it.
No.
Like, I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anybody control a baseball game with 4 at bats in a game the way that guy did.
It was
Um,
incredible.
so for me, I think that if somebody put a gun to my head and said choose one, I think the Astros is probably worse.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but cheating is cheating if you want to think about it that way.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a tricky thing because, like I said, so cheating typically, is going to mean that you have an advantage that other people do not have. So that's where there's like this gray area with the steroids. Potentially, now it doesn't mean that everybody was on steroids, but there were far more people. Like every team potentially had a handful of guys on steroids. The famous at bat with Bonds and Gagne
yeah.
turning on 100-mile-an-hour fastball. Gagne was a what's the report called? What's the
Uh,
steroid report? What's it called? I forget. Anyways, his name came up on the steroids. So it was steroids versus steroids. So it just took the game itself to a rose up the level of play, right? But it was potentially more even. Barry Bonds didn't know what was coming. Could you imagine if Barry Bonds knew what was coming? It looked like he knew what was coming. That's how good he was.
Yeah.
Spitting on 90, 94-mile-an-hour sliders and turning on 101 in McCovey Cove.
Yeah.
Like just absolutely nuts. And then taking him
Yeah.
deep right center field.
asinine.
So
It's crazy.
in my opinion, there's a cheating. There were rules broken, but the rules were broken by a large number of people that you're not even aware of. So Barry Bonds broke records. But what about the guys that are just on a major league roster because they took steroids? See, that was where when I was playing, there were guys doing steroids in the dugout or in the dugout in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
They some of them didn't. Most of them did not make it to the big leagues. But some of those guys gained an edge just to get there. You know what I'm saying? So it's easy to put Barry Bonds in the spotlight because he was in the spotlight. But what about all those other guys taking up roster spots? Because I didn't take steroids. I refused. The opportunity was there, and I didn't do it.
And I know personally a couple guys that were drafted from my high school, and one or two of them took steroids in the minors, and one actually got caught and suspended and everything else. So I mean, it is happening on all levels, and for the longest time, it wasn't against the rules. That's the other thing. It wasn't written, and so people have that argument. And I just, man, I love the game of baseball, but I didn't take it personally, and I didn't feel like they were ripping anything from me. They entertained the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Do
exactly.
I know? Yeah. And so,
well, I think with that point, with the entertainment, what game would you rather watch? Houston versus the Yankees, but the Houston, they know what pitch is coming, or would you rather see both teams on steroids playing a fair baseball game?
Yeah, both teams on steroids for sure.
Both teams on steroids. It's not even a question about it, because now every hit that the Astros would get, knowing what was coming, you'd be like, well, they knew what was coming. It's just it takes the wow out of it. At least it would be an even keel if everybody was on steroids. So that's kind of where I stand. I was like, it's definitely cheating, but cheating has a new meaning now. You got to be careful to call Pete Rose, Barry Bonds, A-Rod cheaters when now we've got the Astros and other teams. Like you said, they're the team that got caught. They were the most obvious about it, and they got caught. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand on it. I think definitely this is worse than the steroids. All right, you want to jump into some data?
Yeah, man, we can. We can do it for sure. I'm just not a big data guy, to tell you the truth. I think that data is useful if it's understood correctly and explained correctly to kids. I think from a hitting perspective, I don't use data a whole lot. Number one, the equipment that it takes right now, the hit tracks and the Rapsodo cost thousands and thousands of dollars. And my facility currently only has the Rapsodo for pitching. I use, my analysis tools, Coach's Eye. I've used Right View Pro before. And we do have, a digital radar gun up that we can measure exit speeds and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But like we were talking about, for my guys, my age guys, I just look for that consistency in the swing, and if I've got a kid that is 12 years old and he's consistently hitting the back of the net at 55 miles an hour, I'm not going to worry too much about getting that kid to 60 when it's only once or twice, and now we're popping the ball up and we're grounding the ball out and we're doing all this stuff. We have launch angle kind of with the analytics. And I think that for young kids, if you start talking a bunch of numbers and you start talking launch angle, then they lose sight of what they really need to be doing. And what do we really need to learn? We need a foundation, right? A swing path that we trust and understand, whether you be a high ball flatter guy, whether you be a Mike Trout, windmill guy. Then you have to have your timing and you have to understand how to get on plane. If you have timing, and understand how to get on plane with shoulder tilt, with, hip hinge, with, keeping posture and all of these things, then the analytics are going to work themselves out. You're going to square the ball up more. You're going to hit the ball as hard as your body can hit the ball. You can always improve your strength. You can improve your explosiveness. You can improve all that, but there's no one fix that's all of a sudden going to make you jump 5 miles an hour in exit speed, unless you just have a god awful swing and we build a swing.
Sure.
But once the swing is good and it's a good foundational fundamental swing, all that other stuff is just for coaches to say, oh, look at my kid. He's 13 and he has a 75 mile an hour exit speed and he's, his launch angle is 19 degrees. Well, okay.
They're like badges of honor.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
And now,
we didn't have any of that crap.
None. I tell kids all the time, especially young ones, I was like, okay, God gave humans senses. We have 5 senses. Okay. We can't taste a hit. And you can't really smell a hit. But all the other 3, I can feel it, right? When it's good on the barrel, I can hear it. I know what solid contact sounds like, and I can see it. I can see the trajectory that I want. I know what a pop-up looks like. I know what a ground ball looks like. I know what a top spin line drive looks like. And I know what a ball with good carry at, 15 to 20 degrees looks like. I don't need a $5,000 machine to tell me this. And if you can, as a player, if you can start to use those things and not rely, one of the things that drives me nuts and I end up turning the radar gun off is every swing, boom. And they're looking up to find the radar. And I'd make fun of them at some point. Like, bro, you hit the ball 50 miles an hour. We don't need to look at the radar gun.
Yeah.
Right. You're not breaking any records today.
Yeah.
So I don't use them much, but lack of funds because it's expensive.
Yeah.
And I don't work in a multi-million-dollar facility, right? But also, I don't want young players to fall in love with the numbers and the technology. I want them to feel their swing and understand, okay, when I did this, I get a good result. Not what does it say up on a board. Now, it's fun, every 6 months to test exit speed. Hey, man, you're making improvement. Like, you got to have goals. If we want to set exit speed as one of our goals, if we want to, set a trajectory angle as a goal, I want to hit, 10, 15 degree, 17 degree line drives. Okay, fine. But I am not going to get you in here every single time and hook you up to Rapsodo or to Hit Track and let you see how far you can hit a baseball.
In a cage.
Yeah.
It's not even, you're not actually hitting the ball that far. So you don't get to see the ball travel. You don't get to see it carry off the bat. So I definitely think that there's a place for it, but it can train almost instill like almost a level of OCD. You're too concerned, and this is a big thing in the mental skills like world. Performance is process over outcome. We're training them to be so caught up in the outcome they can lose sight of the process. So there's a thing that the saying is like 80-20. So 80% on the process, 20% on the outcome. So I think like what you said was on the money, where you check it every month or 6 weeks or 2 months or whatever. You can hook them up and see if there's progress. If there's no progress, then maybe there could be time for a tweak if necessary, if by the coach, right? But like you said, we learned how to hit through feel. And this is why when you have, we talked about this before, the big leaguers describing how they approach hitting a baseball and it being the opposite of what computers or what the analytics are showing, or like a slow motion swing. I never saw my swing in slow-mo as a player. I had a lot of success, and I don't know, and I know my biggest thing was my mental game. My approach. If I could have dialed in my approach and been consistent with my mentality, my attitude, to be able to control myself, I would have more control of my performance. And my peaks and valleys were I was so hot or so cold, and there was hardly anything in between. If I had minimized my cold spells, I would have hit 300 at every level I played at.
Yeah.
That simple. And nothing to do with mechanics. So I think that is the part that's being missed. Everybody wants to look where there's actual numbers and there's like visual evidence at a computer, on a radar gun, on a stopwatch. It doesn't mean anything. That's just the outcome, the launch angle. Yeah. But if a guy has to think swing down and he hits the ball over the fence,
whatever works.
He's not wrong. And that's what
Yeah.
drives me nuts is that these coaches, there's a lot of coaches online that are saying that that's wrong. A-Rod's wrong. Barry Bonds is wrong how they describe the swing. And yes, they may not be good teachers of it because they might just say, well, this is how you do it and that's it. So that's where they kind of fall off as being a coach, right? But they're not wrong. In fact, they have something that we need to learn from, especially like the coaches that are very heavy on the analytics. They want to go with what they can see. But what they can see isn't always what's going to get a player to get the result that they want. And I think that I don't know where the future is going to go. Like, I'm sure there's still going to be the hitters that excel and obviously fill big league rosters that can hit. But are they hitting because of the analytics built into the coaching, or are they hitting because maybe they are more in tune with the feel of what it feels like to hit a baseball?
Man, in my experiences with hitters, your really good ones at whatever level it is aren't using the analytics. We just see that because it's social media, and that's something, you know, like I said, badges of honor for coaches or whatnot. I've got college guys that come back and hit with me, and they're not asking to get anything. They're like, hey, man, come in here and flip me some. Let's see how it feels. Let's see my plate coverage. Let's look at my path. Let's look at this stuff. They're not looking for exit speed and all of this. And I think at the big league level, you know, I just use Correa because it's an example. Like Blast has Correa as an ambassador or whatever. Carlos Correa is not getting on a blasting in a cage and taking swings and looking over there at his hand speed and his angle of attack and all of this. No. Okay, that's not happening.
You can't think that to hit a 98 plus mile an hour fastball. You can't.
And so when I see, you know, and I try to tell people all the time, you have all these spring training videos now of all these big leaguers in batting practice. Do you see any monitors around them? Do you see any wires hooked up to them? Do you see any sensors, like, you know, all over them? All that stuff's for show. Those guys now in the off season, they may hook up to that once or twice to really, you know, if you get your guys that are really, really technology, you know, need that just because of the times we're in.
Yeah.
But you get them out in BP, you get them in the cage with the teams, they're in there feeling their swing. They're in there, you know, making small adjustments with their own, you know, biomechanics, not what some computer is telling me I need to be doing or anything else. So it's a moneymaker. It's like anything else, man. It's a moneymaker.
Yep. Well, and it's feeding on the mindsets, right? Because if you have that mindset where it's like, ooh, that's going to help me, that's going to give me the edge, that's going to mean that maybe it's like it's a shortcut in some way. It's going to get me there faster. No, man, you just need to take more swings, and you just need to feel it. Because I took probably millions of swings. I wish I had a number, because that would be a fun stat. How many swings did I take in the cage, on the field, off the tee, wherever? Extra BP, early BP, before practice. I do stuff before games, after games. Like, it was nonstop. But I knew what it felt like when I connected. And then in your mind, you reverse engineer it to duplicate, to replicate, repeat that feel.
Absolutely.
Right? Because when you're hot, when I was hot, and this is probably most people, at least how they describe it, it's easy. When you're going well, it's easy. But also when you're going well, you have a strong mental game.
Yeah.
Because you're positive. Right? You're confident. You don't let bad calls bother you. You feel invincible. Your body language is better. You stand taller. You're more, like I said, more confident. Exudes like a certain body language. So all these things, your mental game gets better when you're hitting the ball well. And then when we don't hit the ball well, we lose that because we don't know that we're actually doing it. And then we end up getting poor results. So that's where I missed out. Is that I don't only need to duplicate the swing, I need to duplicate how I felt prior to the swing.
Yeah.
What I'm thinking prior to the swing is going to allow the swing to actually come through and be easy and effortless and see the ball better. The ball will look like this sometimes, and then sometimes it's like
it's already there.
What the hell? And that could be like 85. Sometimes we'd come in the game, like if you're not seeing the ball well, It could be like a pro ball, like a lefty throwing 88, which was not hard when you're facing 95 plus every night. And it's like,
But you're not seeing it, and it looks like a
not,
P coming in.
yeah, and it
Yeah.
looked like, yeah, a P with run. And you're just like, holy crap. So anyways, I don't even know where we were at on that. But yeah, anyways,
No,
about
that
the
was just the.
feeling it,
Yeah.
you have to. And big leaguers, like I said, they can't go up there thinking about any bit of analytics when they're trying to hit a major league pitcher. Just can't
Yeah.
happen.
Well, and that goes back to anything. I mean, even, you just changed that, but a regular high school kid can't go and play varsity baseball thinking about analytics. Like, it doesn't, if you're thinking mechanics, if you're thinking, point A to point B while you're trying to focus on, I tell kids all the time, if you're thinking about anything other than a little white thing flying at you, you're wrong.
Yeah.
The bottom line, end of story. If you're thinking about anything else once you step in the box other than seeing the little white thing flying at you, you're wrong.
Yep.
And if you have one swing thought or two swing thoughts that are simple on deck things, then that's
Sure.
fine. But
But it needs to be something that is simple. It's easy,
yeah,
that you know what that feels like. It triggers that in your mind. Oh yeah, even if it's down or whatever you got to think. If it's oppo, see the ball,
yeah,
hit it, drive it the other way, whatever it is, you know what that feels like, and then you have a good chance of duplicating that or producing a result. Like I said, I think to sum it up, like it's definitely, there's some use for it, but it's dangerous because a lot of kids will misuse it, or they'll overuse it, and that's where they run into trouble. Like, what are your top three, tips for success for your young ball players if you had to sum it up?
probably. And again, it kind of varies based on age. But for my young ones, the kids that I'm with, basically keeping the game fun. Don't turn it into a job. Early on, you have to work at it. But if the game if it starts to feel like the fun is out of it, or you are, feels like a job, then we need to take a step back and reevaluate how we're going about it. So that's the first thing, is always stay fun and have fun with it. Understand that baseball is negative. And from a hitting perspective,
Sure.
The game is designed for you to fail. That guy on the mound has the advantage. And the sooner that you come to grips with that, and understand that that's part of the deal, and have a true understanding of what success looks like, and the better off you will be. Because, I tell my little league and my Babe Ruth kids, you may be hitting 600 or 700 in little league, but this isn't reality. Real baseball, hitting 300 will get you on the field at any level. And so understanding what success really means, and not having this kind of distorted view of it.
Sure.
This game's really hard. And then the third is being able to compete, understanding what it means to compete. Competing doesn't mean you go out and you win all the time. You're going to lose. You're going to be injured. You're going to have the mental stuff that you're talking about. So truly understanding what it means to compete with yourself mentally, and against people on the other side of the diamond and the other dugout. So that's it for me. Just have fun with it, understand what success really is, and then understand how to compete, both on an internal level and, against the guys in the other dugout.
Yeah,
So,
kind of having a why. It's kind of where know why you're playing. Is important. Like, if you're doing it for somebody else, if you're doing it to impress your coach and teammates and your parents, it might not, be the best long term.
Yeah,
It needs to be something that you truly enjoy, and you do it for the love of it.
What age? I mean, piggybacking off of that what age do you think kids are able to kind of make that determination for themselves? Like, I'm doing this because I want to do it, not because mom and dad are paying money, or not because mom and dad want me to, or anything else.
That's tough. I don't know. I mean, obviously I didn't start figuring that stuff out till later, but I definitely think the sooner when you ask that question, like if you ask your mind or yourself any question, your mind is going to try and find an answer to it. So
Mhm.
there's no harm in asking that question at any age, because
Yeah.
it gets the mind thinking a little below the surface, and then for
Mhm.
example, you could go and it's like a tip or like a strategy, and like with therapy and stuff, it's like you say, well, why do you want to play baseball? And I say, well, I want to impress my dad. Well, why do you want to impress your dad? Right. So
Yeah.
the more basically you're just asking why over and over, because
Yeah.
it gets deeper and deeper and deeper to finally find some root cause or meaning behind it. And I think the sooner you do it, the better. It doesn't mean that they're going to have an answer or that it won't change over time, but it
Right.
begins the process of the mind kind of expanding and getting below the surface a little bit. Because
Yeah.
I didn't ask that question until my career was already over, and I was a little too
Fair
late.
enough. Yeah. No doubt. No doubt.
Okay, so my three tips would be to be a learner, be a student of the game. I think that alone can take care of a lot, right? It's going to help shape your mindset. When you go into situations thinking you know everything, well, you're not going to learn because, well, you know everything. So you're not going to be open to new information that could potentially help you, that could be the difference in your career. I mean, because there is maybe some guy big and strong like myself. Maybe I should be hitting more fly balls. Maybe a launch angle approach would work. But if I'm
Yeah.
like, well, no, I swing down and that's it. That's how, and you beat the ball on the ground all day. Maybe you're the guy that the launch angle you needed to open up to give yourself the opportunity, and you literally turn the field upside down, and your entire career could be completely different. So just an
Yeah.
example, right? Then I would say just to be grateful for the opportunity to play. And I think the moment that we're in now, or this current
Yeah.
situation we're in with the COVID-19, is a big eye opener. It's a big learning opportunity to gain some perspective on life. Human life, humanity trumps your baseball career. Yes, it sucks. I have a nephew that's a senior in high school, and he just lost his senior season. And I haven't talked to him much, but I think he's handling it pretty well. Obviously, he's bummed out, but he's still working hard to get ready for next year. But it's a big learning opportunity for perspective, to realize there is
Yes.
more things more important in life than baseball, and that it's not who we are. It's just something that we do, and we can
Yeah.
really love to do it, and it can be your life's work, but it's not who you are. So I think going into gratitude, just being grateful for the time you do have and making the best out of that time you have. And then my last one is just have fun, because it's such a
Yeah.
cliche thing that it just gets brushed over. But if you are not having fun, you're not going to do it. People don't play video
Yeah.
games because they don't enjoy doing it. We do
Yes.
things as kids because they're fun, flat out. If you have fun doing something,
Yeah.
you're going to do it. It's like a reward, so you're just going to keep doing it over and over again because it's fun. A lot of kids quit because it's no longer fun, as the number
Yeah.
one reason, not because. And maybe it comes down to their mindset. Maybe they focus too much on their failure, they get discouraged, and then they ultimately quit because, well, they're not having fun. So I think that's, again, it's a tricky thing. How do you teach having fun? Again, I think it's just the mindset and having perspective. So like kids
Mhm.
nowadays are playing wiffle ball. They're maybe they shouldn't be, but they're out there playing wiffle ball, which is good to see them having more fun with the game of baseball in other forms. Baseball doesn't always have to be on a field in a uniform too.
No doubt. No
Like,
doubt.
okay, you play video games, but go play wiffle ball, man. We used to hit like soccer balls and like basketballs in the front yard. We would play baseball with anything round and any
Yeah.
stick that we could find.
Yep.
That's still
Yep.
baseball. That is still baseball. So, those are my three tips. Was there
Awesome, man.
anything that you wanted to talk more about the COVID real quick, or if you got to go?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I've got a couple more minutes.
Okay.
Just on that, for anybody watching this and just for us, it's just something that none of us would have ever foreseen getting to this level. It's as close to chaos as I have been
Yeah.
around, in my life. When you look around and grocery stores have lines literally, down the street, and
Shelves
you
are
have,
empty.
yeah,
Yeah.
you've got restaurants and everything shutting down. I work in Pearland, which is right outside of Houston, but I actually live about 45 minutes south of that in just a tiny town.
Mm.
And all of our, small business owners, if they go a month without income, they're done, man. Like
Yeah.
it could, wipe out basically the economy of my hometown,
Yeah.
um, depending on how long it goes. And so reality, you know, kicks in, and I want everybody to be safe, obviously, but it's it's emotional. It fills people with anxiety, the unknown. I think for the most part, people were like, "Oh, it's not going to affect us. We live in this small town, or we don't live in Seattle or New York
Sure.
or where people are coming in." And then all of a sudden, you hear California's got 40 million people on lockdown. You hear that, New Jersey is shut, Vegas is shut for 30 days. Like what? Like the world is really
Yeah.
freaking out. And it's not, with what I have read and everything else and watched on the news. I try to keep my mind pretty open to different news outlets and find the best sources that I can.
Yeah.
But everybody is pretty much saying this could go on, April, May, maybe into June.
I even heard
And
September.
yeah, I mean, trying
Yep.
to wrap your brain around what that may look like is it's a scary proposition. And I hope that everybody's safe. I hope that
Hmm.
everybody has made plans, and my heart goes out to, families and businesses that, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months of no income. It can be detrimental,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's kind of reality staring us right in the face.
Hmm.
Um,
Like I said, yeah, it puts things in perspective. As baseball is now, most people should hopefully see baseball's entertainment.
mhm.
It's entertainment.
Yeah,
We
it is.
do it. We do it because we grew up in a time where we were able to do it. We aren't living in a country where there's constantly war going on and all different types of just you know we live in safe for the most part. There are obviously
Yeah,
dangerous areas, but I live in a pretty safe area. I'm sure you probably live in a pretty safe area. It makes you comfortable to go outside and play ball if you're a kid. And so yeah, again, I think it's of course it's a sad time for all the lives lost, absolutely. And I think that's also, it seems very far from home for a lot of people. It's hard to wrap your mind around it when you haven't personally lost a loved one. And so we have a tendency to see, oh, my baseball season, oh, this sucks. We focus on the inconvenience of it. People are
right.
losing their lives flat
Yeah,
out. And your baseball career means nothing compared to the loss of all these human lives. And I was like, that being said, is like, I still think though it should empower us, not necessarily like make us feel bad and not do anything, not pursue our goals. If you have goals, do it, be safe, right? Do what you can inside. You can go outside in limited numbers and wherever it's deemed safe, but like get your work in. Do some.
yeah,
We have the ability to reach out. I can talk to you in Texas from my home where I'm shelter in place.
yeah,
You know, you can go on YouTube. You can find workout programs. You can find home baseball drills. Even your YouTube channel. I'm sure there's plenty of drills that you can probably do at home that most kids maybe have a net and they have like a tee. So it's like the work doesn't have to stop. Not to mention just keep yourself busy. But
no
it's
doubt.
something that we cannot control, and it goes with baseball. There's so many variables in baseball that we cannot control. If we choose to focus on those things, we're not going to get the results that we want.
It
So
drives yourself crazy.
yeah, so one thing I learned recently is E plus R equals O. So like the event plus response equals the outcome. So no matter what, we are part of the equation. How we
Yeah.
respond to
Uh,
these situations is part of the equation. So, and that's the other thing is your responsibility is your ability to respond. As being a human being, we have the ability to respond to events, and so how we respond to this is going to determine the outcome that we get.
Yeah,
And
especially from a coaching perspective, where you've got, a family of ball players and whatnot. How are you reckon? For me, like right now, our facility's still open.
Yeah.
So we have to limit to 10, in there. But I feel like it's kind of a safe haven for my guys. They can come in and they can have a sense of normalcy.
Get out of their house.
From a world that's not normal anymore. And you're talking about, 10 to 18-year-olds that have now have this world that they were living in shrunk down to their parents and their house again. It's like, oh, I get my hour with Coach Cathcart today, and I've made it a little more laid back. I've made it more, hey, let's talk about what's going on type feel.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so trying to, ease some anxiety, keep the normalcy, still get our work in, those types of things. So it yet to be determined.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great coaching opportunity too, to like really, when you, like you said, talk about it, because these are the things that are really more important. And if it takes the pressure off of you as a player, which I think is a big thing, to eliminate pressure or to reduce pressure as a player, is to have some perspective. At the end of the day, I go 0 for 3, 0 for 4. It's okay.
Yeah.
You're all right. It's gonna happen. It's not the first, and it won't be the last time. But at the end of the day, did you have fun? Did you play hard? And that's all that you can do. Controlling what you can control. And I think, like I said, I think there's a lot of good that can come out of this. Yeah. And I just hope, my wish for everyone is that they can find it, because there's a devastating things going on, but there can be good that comes from it.
Yeah. My parting words on that, man, is appreciate what you have, and find a routine.
Yeah.
Routine
is and habits. Yep.
Yeah. So.
All right, man. Anyway, cool, man. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Let's do it. All right, man. Take care. Be safe. Take care of that family. Man. All right. See you, man.